I mean, it'll be interesting to see in 5, 10 years. Do supermarkets look different? Are they laid out
Yeah.
differently? Do brands find interesting ways around it? But it's amazing that lots of brands, even with all of this going on for all of these years, are still not prepared.
Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Sam Conebar. I'm based in the UK, and I specialise in regulatory compliance for foods, beverages, supplements, essentially anything ingestible. Um, and that's helping UK brands who are new to market, but also helping international brands coming in. And since Brexit, helping to reconnect UK brands back with Europe. Um, and that ranges from formulation checks to label checks to advertising and marketing checks, and um, making sure that products are safe and the things being said about the products are all legally compliant.
Okay. Which is what we're going to talk about today. New regulations that have just kicked in the UK, related to a ban on HFSS advertising.
Yes.
And the minute anyone hears the word ban,
Yeah.
we all kind of go a little doom. So, what is this? Like, let's start right at the beginning. What is HFSS?
So, I mean, the main thing to say is that the ban is on how the products are advertised. There isn't a ban on any products per se, but the rules have been brought in, which I think everyone generally agrees is a good idea, and it changes the way that brands are able to promote and advertise less healthy products. And the regulations are known as HFSS, and that stands for high in fat, sugar, and salt. And that's the types of products that are targeted by this. And like I say, it's not now illegal for brands to sell less healthy products. It just means that they can't put them on price offer or put them at checkout in prominent positions where people might make an impulse buy.
What,
Or,
sorry, what do you mean by price offer?
so an example would be buy one get one free, or
Oh, okay.
two for the price of three. Something
Ah,
that encourages a consumer to make a purchase because it looks like they're going to save money.
okay, so it's
Um,
kind of like a discounted
yeah,
version of
exactly
it.
any kind
Yeah.
of promotional discount doesn't necessarily need to be a price discount. It could just be putting the products. You have like aisle displays and things
Hmm.
like that. Anything that promotes the product. Going forwards, that can only happen if the product is deemed to be healthy. It's designed to tackle particularly childhood obesity,
Right.
um, because a lot of these products are chocolates, crisps, sweets, fizzy drinks. They're things that children consume, and it's trying to stop the children from seeing them.
Hmm.
So not only are we talking in store, but things like on TV advertising. Now these types of products can't be shown on TV before 9 p.m. So it's trying to stop children coming into contact with these types of promotions. And it's also trying to limit impulse buys from parents and people. A mum at checkout with her child, the child will see that the
Yeah.
sweets are on offer by the checkout. So it's just trying to tackle childhood obesity. I mean, obesity in general, but particularly childhood obesity. And this is the way it feels that it can do this most effectively.
This has been in the works for a little bit of time, right? Because I have been hearing
Yes,
about
it has. Yeah,
HFSS for about a decade now, or
it
it
has been
feels
for a
like
long
a
time,
decade.
and it's been rolled out slowly. There's been different parts. In 2022, I believe, were the first restrictions on where products could be sold, or where they could be promoted. Sorry, and there were changes brought in to strengthen that last year. And January this year was the big one, because that was when the TV advertising before 9 p.m. That came into effect, and also paid for ads online. So now it's not possible to run paid for adverts online for these types of products. So that was the sort of big thing that was waiting to happen. But it's amazing that lots of brands, even with all of this going on for all of these years, are still not prepared for it. So it's I know international brands, you can give them a bit of leeway for that, but there's still UK brands who are still trying to resolve product formulas. And, it's been something that we've known is coming in for years now.
There is not a ban on products that are high in fat, sugar, or salt. It is still very much legal. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll still be in supermarkets, and they'll still be sold, and they'll still be online. It's just the way that they're being advertised and promoted. So that can be something as simple as using a cartoon character to advertise a product that might be high in sugar. That type of thing you'll see less of. You won't see chocolate bars on price discount, or buy one get one free, or unhealthy ready meals, things that are just generally considered to be less healthy. They just won't be pushed in our faces as much. That's the goal of this regulation. But yeah, there's still a place for these products, and they're still going to be very popular products. I don't think they're going to all of a sudden find that sales dry up of these products. It just means they have to change the way they advertise and promote them.
All right. So what exactly is now the definition of a healthy brand in the eyes of the UK food authorities?
So the way it's calculated, it's obviously all based on the nutrition profile of the product, and it uses something called the nutrient profile model, and you basically get positive points for certain things and negative points for certain things, and at the end there's a total, and if your total is above the limit, you're regarded to be less healthy. So they don't say unhealthy, they just refer to products that fall into this category as less healthy. And ultimately, if products are high in sugar, fat and salt, they're going to get a lot of negative points. They can balance that if the product's also high in protein or high in fibre, or contains fruit or nuts within the product, then it will get positive points for that. But for products...
Sorry, I have to ask. Does that mean Cadbury's fruit and nut will be slightly better than Cadbury?
So potentially, yes. I don't know if that was a genius move from them about 50 years ago to see that this was coming. The product has to contain more than 40%. It can't just be a very small amount. Compressed fruit bars, or there's a lot of like nut-based breakfast bars that are very, very heavily, contain nuts, and it allows those types of products to have a little bit of leeway. But I'm not sure if a Cadbury's fruit and nut would bypass.
I had to ask. Are we going to do the calculation thing? Do you want to do that?
I mean, I looked at the sort. I found. I'm assuming we're allowed to name product brands.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I just found a can of Dr. Pepper in the cupboard that has been there for God knows how long, and I ran the check on that, and I was actually really surprised because it is only just less healthy. So I assumed, just looking at that a can of Dr. Pepper would be, certainly fall within scope. But because it has no fat and no salt, the sugar, obviously it contains sugar, but the sugar amount is not actually as high as you would think when you're looking at the profile model. And that has a score of 1, a can of Dr. Pepper. I calculated it has a score of 1. Anything 1 or more for drinks is considered less healthy. So it is only just on the cusp. And I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know when I mean, it went out of date in 23, so I've obviously had it in the cupboard a while. But I wouldn't be surprised if Dr. Pepper have actually made their cans of drink
Less sweet.
non-HFSS, because it was previously it was very, very close to being the case.
Okay. Wait, so how does that compare with a can of regular Coke or regular Pepsi? Do they
Well,
cross the one limit?
I mean, in general, these brands have known, obviously, that this was coming in. And that's why there's been, over the last 5 years or so, there's been a much bigger push on products like Coke Zero than there has been on regular Coke. And I think a lot of these brands have been reformulating. I guess the argument is including artificial sweeteners to get around the sugar issue. Is that more healthy? And I think there's always going to be the question of some of these products, the tricks and reformulations that take place are being done purely to avoid either sugar, fat or salt. And sometimes what's going in instead is not always the best type of ingredient or the healthiest type of ingredient. So I think that's going to give rise to a bigger issue here, because obviously Coke Zero, as an example, has no sugar, so it will not be HFSS. It will be a non-HFSS product. But do we want children consuming fizzy drinks that contain artificial sweetness? So I think the argument is still going to crop up. But in terms of just tackling obesity, then that is why most of the main brands now have a calorie-free equivalent.
Right.
To get around this. And there's also been the sugar tax implemented in the UK recently, so that was a bit of a double whammy for those type of products. Not only are they less healthy and not able to promote them, they're also having to pay more tax because of the sugar content. So there's been a double initiative for brands to change that, and that's why most will have a 0 calorie equivalent on shelf now.
So that's a fairly easy fix for drinks.
Yes.
Foods are a bit more complicated. I mean, because sugar,
very much so.
Sugar and salt to a certain extent actually have,
and fats. I mean,
and fats.
If you think of like a bakery item, I mean that you can't replace the sugar and the fat in a cake or a pastry. Or, it's going to be it would need some incredible innovative technology for someone to do that.
Yeah. So, what have you seen those kinds of foods do? Even if you take a snack bar, an energy bar, that is very high in sugar, or it used to be.
Yeah, no, they are, and that's exactly the type of product that children will eat as well. Yeah. So it's I mean, for years, cereal and cereal bars and things like that, everyone's known how unhealthy they are. I think with some products, it's very difficult. Obviously, I mean, talking about things like cakes and biscuits and cereal bars, the nature of the product's going to make it very difficult. I guess what it does mean is that if less promotional space is being given to those products, it allows that promotional space to be taken up by healthier options. So people might start transitioning from cereal bars onto compressed fruit bars because they're still allowed. There might be some kind of thing like that where that extra space is utilized by healthier types of products. For the brands selling the less healthy products, I've seen some brands will maybe focus on one product and put a lot of resource into making one HFSS, exempt product, so that they can at least keep one product for promotion, and that then keeps their brand visible in promotion. And then they obviously have the other products in the range that you can find elsewhere. But yeah, for brands who can't reformulate the entire range, it's becoming the case that they will pick and choose the products that they can reformulate and then hero those in their advertising to just to sort of stay relevant and
Yeah.
to keep, that brand name in the public eye. But yeah, it's very difficult. And I guess the brands that are having the most trouble are the brands that have been making the most money off of unhealthy foods. So it's almost a little bit of karma there for the brands who've hedged all of their bets on unhealthy, high sugar, high fat products.
So you bring up a really interesting point here. So you talked about shelf space. Does this mean that retailers are also giving less shelf space for high uh, HFSS products
Yeah, I
by
mean
law?
the retailer would be responsible, and if we're taking the
Okay.
case of a supermarket. So for the past, I obviously work with a lot of brands who sell in store, and I've known maybe for the last 2 years, brands have been challenged by the retailers and have been trying to find solutions for products because ultimately now the retailer need to be confident that the products are not HFSS. Otherwise, the retailer can't promote them where they want to promote them. So
Mm.
that's become a big thing now, particularly with new brands when they get picked up by retailers. One of the first questions they would have been asked is, do the products comply with the HFSS regulations? And if the brand weren't aware of that or they hadn't factored that in, and if the answer is no, then yeah, it would have been unlikely the retailer would be bringing in new brands and new products unless they complied with those regulations.
Let's assume that retailers now, because of this mandate, they now have there's a ton of extra shelf space. Um,
Well,
well, at
promotional,
least
so end of
promotionals,
aisles,
yes,
and yeah,
promotional shelf space.
yeah,
That's going to change quite a bit. And it also means that there's a lot of opportunity for brands that may not have had much oxygen before.
yeah, and
That
brands that
could,
would have been seen to be expensive because of how cheap a lot of these
yes.
other products are, because they're always on offer or they're always being
Mm,
discounted, or they're part of certain deals. Now that's gone, so those
mm,
products now are at full price, and that might then, when a customer's making a decision, it makes the healthier, smaller batch produced products seem less expensive. Um, and also, those products will probably be used in those promotions because now, that they're going to be the ones stepping in to fill that space.
yes.
So in theory, I mean, in theory, there will always be certain types of products and brands who are against it. But in general, I think um, it seems to be a great way to flip the sort of narrative in supermarkets and online and on TV ads, and to get healthier products in front of people. That
Mm,
seems to be an effective way of doing that. Obviously, time will tell, but I think initially
yeah.
a positive rule change.
Does this also apply on the online markets?
Yeah, yeah. So if you imagine um, an online retailer, it's similar in the way that you can't advertise at checkout in store. You're not allowed anymore to advertise at checkout in online. Um, the way things are advertised on the homepage, that's
Hmm.
been affected, and promotional sort of banners and adverts within the site. So it's very much it is a direct comparison for in store. You won't be bombarded with offers for unhealthy products while you're shopping online. You could argue it will impact more brands online because there are a lot more brands
Yes.
online. Um, but yeah, it will definitely have an impact on the way products are advertised.
Does this also apply to food service?
To food service, as in
Yeah, in
like
restaurants and things like that.
no, it only applies to sort of pre-packed foods, and even then, there's even exemptions within that. So obviously, I'm talking about supermarkets and big stores,
Hmm.
small stores with that fall below a certain square footage or that have below a certain number of employees, they become exempt. So it's really designed to target the big supermarkets and big retailers and big online retailers, um, the smaller stores. And also, I mean, it would be unfair to say to Hotel Chocolat that you can't advertise chocolate products on your website anymore. So when companies exist within a very specific category, they're still allowed to promote and advertise their products because that's their niche and that's what they sell. But it just prevents, in a broader general context, those types of products being advertised.
Okay, so the target is primarily big supermarkets or hypermarkets, and probably because the really small stores cannot afford to do price promotions like that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I guess it would be very hard to police. I think. I mean, it's easy enough
true.
to police if you're talking about Tesco's, Sainsbury. When you look at all of the small chains and other things, I think then maybe the regulations would lose a bit of impact because it would be impossible for the authorities to keep track of all of that, I think.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting exercise in actually implementing this.
I think so. I mean, it's been very, very clear that it's been designed predominantly to tackle childhood obesity. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see in 5-10 years, do supermarkets look different? Are they laid out differently? Do brands find interesting ways around it? There's always going to be products that fall through the cracks or that, are reformulated in a clever way. So that might bring in more problems, particularly to do with artificial sweeteners or other artificial fat replacers or, things like that. So it might open a can of worms in that sense. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it does promote long-term change and actually changes the way people shop. So if people are less, if impulse buys, can only be on healthy products, and if price offers are only on healthy products, will it gradually start to change the way people shop? And that would be the interesting thing.
When you calculate that nutrition score, does it take into account things like emulsifiers and thickeners and things like that, or are they just too
not
small?
At all. No, it's purely what's inside the nutrition table. So you can calculate a product score most of the time just if you can see the calorie content, the sugar, the salt, the fat, the protein, the fiber, and all of that is displayed. It's not things that are hidden or not obvious. And that's the point there about the emulsifiers and thickeners. Those types of ingredients will probably be utilized more as replacers for other things. And like I say, that could be where the knock-on effect could be that people look for artificial alternatives to help them, do better on this score, which is a very, very broad score. It isn't really a defining factor of is a product healthy or is a product not healthy. It's just trying to be as general as possible to catch the largest number of products. But obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to do a great job and that products on the market being promoted are not actually more healthy than the ones that can't be.
I do wonder if there's going to be a bit of a shift towards more staples rather than pre-packed food, mainly because it's going to be more expensive.
Things like cakes and chocolates and biscuits, or even for actual meals, so ready meals. People will pick up a ready meal because it's cheap rather than whole foods. But yeah, it won't be as cheap now. It won't be as discounted. It won't be promoted as much. It certainly won't have the same level of advertising budget, and it won't be in people's faces as much. So yeah, I think ultimately it's education, isn't it? Like to know what foods generally are healthier, and to know what to be avoiding, regardless of these scores, because there's so much more involved than just whether a food is high in sugar or high in fat. So I think education is in the long run probably the only thing that's going to solve something like childhood obesity.
Yeah. Also, I can already hear arguments about people saying this is very nanny state, trying to tell people what to eat, what not to eat. If these allegations haven't already been leveled, companies are probably grumbling about it as well. So,
Yeah, and if you think of things like tobacco, I mean, there's always
yeah.
the rules are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. But if it's that dangerous, should it not just be banned altogether? And I think this is a similar argument here. The rules are changing for these types of products, but the argument is, well, if it's unhealthy, if it's causing obesity, should the government just either ban them or let everyone get on with it? But rather than, controlling how things are promoted, it does seem that it's a middle ground option to keep to keep everyone happy. It's just trying to prevent people from consuming too much.
Are there any interesting examples that you've seen of products that have gone from over one score to under one
So the
to
main
get
the
into
main
this?
category I see, because I work with a lot of sort of sports and supplement brands, protein bars were a
Hmm.
category that looked like they would be exempt initially, but actually the rules apply, and the reformulations that have taken place there have been predominantly with the introduction of sweeteners. So that's been an area where a lot of those products are now, they're not less healthy anymore by the nutrient score, um, but they do have warnings on about, excessive consumption might have laxative effects, and some people have gastric issues with them.
Yeah.
So they've got round this one particular rule, but the products on shelf now are um, very artificial when it comes to the sweetness, and they've all got bulk sugar replacers. Um, so that's been one example I've seen a lot of, and it was an easy reformulation fix, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a benefit for the people that
Mm.
are consuming it. Ready meals have changed quite a lot in the last few years. There's lots more. They're almost marketed as like gym prep meals, and there's been a big influx of those, and they've been created specifically to be HFSS compliant because of the rules
Okay.
coming in. So
Okay.
there's been a big change there, and that's probably an area where there hasn't been much development in the last, however long. Ready meals have always been high in fat and salt for as long as I can remember. So that's been an area where there's been quite a shift, and there's a lot in most of these categories now. The new brands that are launching to be HFSS compliant. So they're
Right.
from the get go, they're challenging the more traditional products, whether that's, cake bars being created that are now, they've been formulated in a way to be HFSS compliant, or drinks, or ready meals. Everything now new coming through is likely to be in this bracket of more healthy. Yeah, it's going to challenge the status quo. Whether people are receptive to that and start to buy the new versions, or whether they revert back to the sort of traditional unhealthy options, that's going to be the interesting one to see.
Does volume play a role in this? So, can you bring down the size or volume of a pack and call it HFSS compliant?
So it's all based on the per 100 grams.
Ah, okay.
So
Okay.
that could have been an option, and I believe
Workaround.
that might have been an option for dealing with the sugar tax. So chocolate bars reducing in size
Yeah.
because of the sugar tax, but for this, it's all based on 100 gram or 100 ml for drinks. So whether that's, in a small glass or a huge bottle, the score is going to be the same.
I'm sure over the years there have been some brands that have done pretty well out of this. Like you said, some of the newer brands are being created to be HFSS compliant. Um, but have these guys gotten enough traction in store, online, and with consumers to kind of actually challenge bigger brands?
The growth of certain aisles within supermarkets, and gluten free is now a huge sector, and things are now either high protein or high fiber. That there's clearly a move towards healthy options, or at least on the face of it, there's a move towards healthy options. I think the difference now with the restrictions on the unhealthy products, it's finally a bit of a more level playing field. Ultimately, it's all going to depend on whether the consumer wants it or not.
Yes.
So it's all well and good limiting where a bar of chocolate can be advertised, but if someone wants it, they'll go to the chocolate aisle and they'll pick it up. But it's finally leveled the playing field a little bit. In fact, given a bit more of an emphasis to healthy options. And if they can challenge and take some of that space, then I think at that point the scales will start to go, and those healthy options will increase. But yeah, it's a tough one. It's ultimately, does the consumer want it, and what are they willing to pay for it? I mean, just because it's not going to be on offer. I mean, people buy a tub of ice cream for £6 or £7 in the freezer section. So the price of a chocolate bar at £2 or £3 is still fine. So yeah, all the regulations can do is try to give the best chance that a healthy choice may be made. But they can't make the customer make that choice, and that's where the education comes back in, and that's where these challenger brands have, they've got it on the responsibility of trying to get that message out there, and it's their time now to try and do that, and if they can, then it'd be interesting to see in 10 years' time, walking around the supermarket, how different it might look.
That's true. I guess there's no way to police people at home. I mean, you can add extra salt to your ready meal.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
It might be more of a generational, long-term.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, already the younger generations now, the alcohol consumption's probably at an all-time low. Yeah. And I think that it's the younger consumer probably driving a lot of the new healthy trendy brands that are coming out. When I was a kid, it was Coke, it was Fanta, it was Dr. Pepper or 7-Up, and that was it. That's what you had. There was no, now they've got fizzy drinks that are 0 calorie and high in fiber or high in protein or something else. And there was never any option like that. So already it's come such a long way to what it was.
So these are also things that now global brands that want to come into the UK need to be aware of.
Yes, yeah. I mean, not all products fall into the scope. So the first thing will be for a new brand coming in, checking, does my product fall into any of these categories? And if it does, what is the score? What's its HFSS score? Which is easy enough to calculate. It is just there's a document that's been published by the Department of Health, and it has a table and it shows you the points, and it's just adding a few numbers up and then taking away the sort of positive ones, and you end up with a figure. Once you know that figure, you know how much of a chance you're going to have. I mean, if you're way over the limit, you probably know that the product's not got much chance of being HFSS compliant, which may or may not be a problem, depending on where the brand are intending to sell and how they're intending to sell. So it doesn't mean all of a sudden that there should be a big panic. It just means that if they were planning on doing a lot of promotional activity, or if they were doing a lot of paid advertising, or they were looking to target children, something like that, then at that point, they may need to rethink the products. But like I said, it may be the case that they can reformulate, or they may have one product in the range that is compliant and they can hero that product, and that will allow them to promote the brand and to advertise, and then they can offer the other product in the rest of their range. It's not a sort of end of the road type thing, or everyone needs to panic, but it does need to be factored in now to the product development process, and it needs to be something that forms part of the decisions. It can't be an afterthought, because unless you get really, really lucky, the chances are the product will be non-compliant.
Whose responsibility is it to check if the product is compliant? Is it the retailers or the brands?
For a product being sold in retail, the retailer will check before that product goes in store. They'll want to know the HFSS score, whether it's compliant. Doesn't mean they'll reject the product, but it will then let them know where they can and can't promote. And if it is a product that they were hoping to promote in certain areas and they can't do that anymore, then it might mean that they don't take the product in. So it does depend on the type of product to whether or not, some products will always be less healthy, and that's just the matter of fact. It's not going to stop them getting into the supermarket. But alternatively, if you've got a brand coming in who's factored this in and made sure all of the products are HFSS, that the retailer will, be impressed by that. And in the future, if they've got space they need to fill, or they need to trust in brands that can provide them with HFSS products, then, if people can build that sort of reputation that all of their products are non-HFSS, then it's a good position to be in.
What happens if something that's not compliant sneaks its way in? Is there a fine? Does somebody go to jail?
Jail is unlikely. Yeah, it's normally the end result. Worst case would be fines based on the size of business, number of sales, that type of thing. For one product sneaking through, that's obviously different to someone making a clear breach of the rules and putting things, where they shouldn't. So it would be looked at on a case by case based on how serious the breach. But the bigger companies would be at bigger risk because their profits and sales are larger. Therefore, any potential repercussions would be higher. There's obviously the reputational risk as well of being told off in public for selling things you shouldn't be. The starting point for all businesses is finding out, does this apply to me in my situation with the products I sell, with how I'm selling them, and whether I'm selling them myself or for a retailer. And that question should happen early on in the process now of product development and entering new markets. It should be, okay, do these rules apply? And if so, are my products healthy or are they not? And what can I do about it?
We'll just have to wait and watch. And
it's a big change, really. It's as big a change that I can remember for quite a while. Generated as much sort of publicity and people are talking about it. And in theory, the intentions are good. So, hopefully it has a positive impact.
What would you say are the three main things that people should look at if they're trying to see if their products are compliant? Or if they want to bring in their products and even if it's not, they know it's not compliant, how do they deal with that?
Once you know the scores, then everything else will go from there. But ultimately, it would be do nothing if it doesn't affect where you intend to sell. Make small changes and then hero those products, or change the entire range. But obviously for different brands, there'll be a completely different response to those options.